Hello there. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and I am so glad to be here tonight. Um, as some of you know, I had Mark Elliott Fultz sub for me Wednesday night on Paranormal Experienced, and he did such a great job. He is one of my favorite people in or out of the paranormal. He's a very interesting man, and I thought he did a great job with the show, and everyone that has let us know thought he did too. So be sure and check him out. You can find his books on Amazon under Mark Elliott Fultz, and he's just brilliant. He is a he's a medium. He's everything. He really is. He is trained in metaphysics like nobody's business. I really didn't know that metaphysics included all the things that he brought to the table. And as I had told you, I was in chat, excuse me, and listening to the show live that night. And it was a lot of fun for me too. I love it when I give somebody that I like a lot a platform to just tell you about themselves. That's why I love doing my shows. I like to bring people who are interesting and different and um, people who know their topics. And we have coming on tonight somebody that I really, really admire. You may know him as Science Bob on Dave Schrader's show. He's on there Wednesdays, but he is really a pretty excellent guy in his own right. I've gotten to meet him and converse with him. I think he's pretty special. And y'all seen his other half, Lala, right, on here with me too. So, but we're waiting on Bob to come in, and he'll be here when he can. So I just wanted to let you know that there is so much going on right now, and I have been trying to keep up with everything. I posted a lot about the people in North Carolina, and I did that today because they are in lines to get propane in order to have heat in the little shelters that were provided for them by FEMA. There's so much need in this country right now. And if I were a conspiracy theorist, I would think that it was not by accident. I do know that we have means to control weather. That's very well documented. There's scientific papers on it. There are patents for it. And it's not something that anyone has ever shied away from. When I was watching the fires in California, as y'all know, one of my best friends in the world, Rick McCollum, lives in Hollywood, and he was in the hospital. So pray for Rick. But it's really astounding to me. I've been looking for my friends checking in safe. They have been. But oh my God, it's just amazing. The beaches of Malibu are legend. The Pacific Palisades, that's all people who have done well, and doesn't matter who you are. Homeless is homeless. If you have the resources to help yourself in that situation and help others, that's okay. But it doesn't alter the fact that everything that you love and that matters to you is gone, except for perhaps your children, your animals, family heirlooms, if you had time to grab them. And, I go to California. I've attended Contact in the Desert, which is outside of Palm Springs. I've been to Pasadena for Alien Con 2. I've been in Northern California for the very first Alien Con. I covered both of those. And the fact that this fire just raged uncontrollably, is continuing to rage uncontrollably, is astounding. We have so many people in so much need. I can't even imagine, okay? I can't imagine having been in North Carolina when a freaking hurricane hit me in the mountains of Western Carolina. That does not happen by nature. And you have fires that are just consuming everything. And now they're coming through places where things have already been consumed. And you see pictures of an absolutely empty reservoir that looks like a swimming pool that's put up for the winter. You have firefighters coming from all over the world, all over the world. Firefighters are coming out of Mexico. They are crossing the border, coming in to California to try to save us. You have people from Europe who are coming in. When we had the fires in Cherokee, in the Cherokee National Forest, there were fire jumpers from Arizona who had come to help us. There's so much that needs to happen right now. There's so much that needs to happen wherever there has been tragedy. The people in North Carolina got $750 a piece. A piece. Do you think that's right? Because I do not. And I'm not generally, I can't say that. I am a conspiracy theorist. Okay? It's my job. But it's really and truly one of the most astounding things I've ever seen, to see the disparity in how these situations are handled. And it's really frustrating, because you know what? That's my money, and that's your money, and that's the money of all the people who are being influenced, the people that are in the fires, the people that have been in the hurricanes, the people that have been in floods, the people who are American citizens and deserve everything that this country has to offer them to help them through this. $750 each versus we're going to give you everything you need to build back exactly as you were. There's a disparity there. And it's not right. So, yes, I do know I'm on a soapbox. Yes, I do know how it got there. I put it there. I am so very, I'm devastated. I cannot believe the beauty that is California has had this happen. I can't believe the beauty that is the mountains of North Carolina have had that happen. I can't believe the hurricanes in Florida were so extreme. I'm going to tell you, I was on a ship at sea during Hurricane Sandy. We had 30-foot waves. And it was astounding because the ocean liner, the cruise ship that I was on, could not get on plane. It was crashing between the troughs. And if you've ever fished, you know that that's a bad place to be. It was astounding. I couldn't believe they put out to sea. But I got safely to where I was going and safely back. And I was watching the coverage of the storm as it continued to move up into the Atlantic seaboard. Sandy hit the jet stream, which is cooler water, and was supposed to not continue to build. A hurricane needs heat, hot water to build. That storm grew like, I don't know what. It was crazy that it continued to build even as it was over cooler water. And then it hit New Jersey. I watched all this stuff. I'm a political science major. I study political science. I love it. I love politics. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. And, so I watch every election. I think it's a good time. But when I was watching this, I thought, that should not be happening. Meteorologically, it should not be happening. And yet there it was. So if you ever think that HAARP's not real, then step back and watch what is happening in various political situations, in various health situations, in various any situation, really. It's interesting. I don't know what the deal is. I do know what the deal is. And I think that if we were to be honest, we all know what the deal is. But I don't think anybody should have something weaponized against them, certainly not an American citizen. That's my take on that. But anyway, so Bob is still not here. I'm sure that he will be soon. And I am just ready to talk to him. One of the things that I have found with him is that he's fun, he's funny, he's interesting, he is smarter than the average Bob. So I think that it's going to be a good time. I am working to find him. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to, while we're in this wait and see mode, I'm going to fix that because I want. There's Al. But you'll notice this one's green because the blue owl, all the air went out of him on me. He just gave up. So there's that. But I think that I have Lori Dorsey in chat, and she agrees with me. I don't generally talk about conspiracies, not my own. But I really think that it's interesting. I really think that the coverage of the things in California has been fantastic. I'm just horrified by what I see. We have these fires that they're going again in the Pacific Palisades where there should be nothing left to burn. There's thousands of homes that are gone. There's very little fuel. There should be very little fuel left to feed this fire. And yet, kaboom, there it goes. So if you have an opinion on that, feel free to pop it in here because I'm open to it. So I'm going to type a little message. And then we're going to let it go. So one of the things that I have found, moving on to a little bit less political stuff, because while I love politics, I don't like talking politics. I like to watch them because my opinions are varied, and it's not a political basis. I don't have an affiliation that's going to cause me to think one group of people are bad and one group of people are, the angels. I think that humans are humans. I think that every organization has members that make you go, oh, no, I don't think I can support that. And every organization has members that make you go, oh, we need more people like that. And I think that the cringe is deserved if it is somebody who has obviously not put the best interests of our country first. I think that the accolades are earned too. Okay. I think that everybody has a yin and a yang. We all have those sides of us. And one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing, watching the, excuse me, excuse me, I have COVID, so sorry. But the thing that really got me as I was watching the Jimmy Carter funeral was that you had 5 past presidents and nobody got into a screaming, hair-pulling, eye-gouging brawl. To me, the most interesting thing was to see Barack Obama and Donald Trump interact, because I did not anticipate there being any kind of camaraderie. in that situation. I was blown away. I mean, seriously, I was blown away. They were smiling and chatting and, you know, getting along. I thought that was cool because those two people are polar opposites. Polar opposites. And yet they could get along. And I really thought, what a great example is being set here. Because, you can't change an election. There was an election, somebody won, somebody didn't win, people go on, you have to follow the law. And while some people don't like that, other people did do that voting. And it's really an interesting thing. Lori said they needed to show unity. They absolutely did, but they were the only two. They were the only two that really put forth that kind of effort to get along. And I know what Barack Obama has thought of Donald Trump. That was astounding that conversation was taking place, right? I mean, they both said bad things about each other, and yet there they were. I think that if we could learn somehow in our lives to do that, how wonderful would that be? I'm not really very good at that sometimes. If I have an opinion, it kind of, my face will tell you my opinion. But it just kind of happens, right? You would never have known that those people ever had a disparaging comment between them. Gosh, I wish I could do that. But not everybody can. Not everybody is interested in it. They brought the grown-up personality to the table. Lori said the only adults in the room. Well, at least in that row. So I just thought that I was really astonished that Mike Pence shook Donald Trump's hand, honestly. I thought that was pretty cool. That was definitely being the adult. And I don't know what that relationship evolved into. I don't know what was true. I don't know what was propaganda. I don't know what was this, what was that, all the way through all of the stuff. It's really astounding to me that they shook hands, because if I were Mike Pence, I don't know that I would have. His wife was having none of it. But there you go. So I guess that's about all the politics I'm going to talk. Not this girl, not on my show. But I just wanted to kind of put out there that I was so impressed. I was impressed with Mr. Obama. I was impressed with Mr. Trump. I was impressed with just being able to smile at each other, because holy cow, that was cool. Now, I am going to go ahead and move on with my conversation. And when Bob gets here, we'll just bring him in. I'm so enthusiastic. I hope nothing's wrong. And I have messaged and not gotten an answer back, so I'm sure that something is going on. But I am so thrilled because I love the topics that he addresses. He is a national security expert. He's a former intelligence officer. He is a scientist. He's an engineer. His first degree came from Auburn University. He's an Alabama boy. And he got his PhD in applied mathematics in 1988. So he is really on top of things. He is a brilliant communicator. He is really astounding. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is what got him into ufology. Because the times that I have met him, we have been involved in UFO conversations or conferences. And I think that for a man of science, That's pretty cool. I think that one of the things that interests me is I'm never ever surprised by who I'm going to meet at the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies conference. I'm never surprised by who I'm going to meet at any of the alien cons or any of the Contact in the Deserts, because there's such a diversified group of speakers. There's such a diversified group of questioners. One of my favorite things about Contact and the UFO Congress in Arizona, all of them, every place that I go, I'm always so impressed with the number of people who come who are UFO experiencers, abductees, people who have implants, people who have had horrible experiences, people who have had brilliant experiences, people who have an affinity for the beings that they interacted with. When I was at my very first Eureka Springs, Ozark Mountain UFO conference, Nancy Tremaine was there. And that was her first time to ever speak. And if you don't know who she is, maybe I can get her on with me again. She was a really, really terrific guest. That was back when I was just audio. So I'm not sure about being able to do a rebroadcast with just audio here. But one of the things that really got me when she did her presentation, she was holding onto that podium for all she is worth. Grant Cameron was kind of her champion there. Okay, that he was her talisman. And he himself is just a really terrific guy. So he helped her get her book published. He helped her to be able to find the courage to get on stage and talk about what had happened to her. She was a multiple abductee. She had a pregnancy. Everything that was going on with her was really interesting. So, and she's one of the few people, and I know two, who have had a pregnancy through abduction or interaction, or Nancy's was more relationship-ish. But it was really one of two people I know who have had a pregnancy that appeared to go to term, and they believe they have seen their child since the pregnancy, as the child grew. And Nancy was very damaged emotionally by what happened to her. She was frightened, and then it just kind of evolved into where she could talk about it. And the other guest actually had a little bit of a problem talking about having seen, and when I asked, have you seen that child? She just flipped out a little bit, and we talked about it, and she said, I think I have once. It was a girl. There was a girl watching me. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I've told you a little bit about him. I'm going to let him tell us some more because my guest is here. And this would be Dr. Bob McGwier, who is also known, if you're watching Schrader, as Science Bob. So hello, Bob. Hi. I can't hear you. I promise he is so well worth this wait. Guaranteed. And do you want me to finish telling you about how absolutely brilliant he is?
Oh, no, you don't have to do
that. Hey.
Okay, so what happens when you're on a bunch of shows and you don't want stuff interrupting? You silence everything on your iPhone, or push one button, and I didn't hear my alarm. But here I am.
No worries. I'm just glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here, Kat. We had such a good time sitting together at the at SCU conference in Huntsville. which is the first time I had met Kat.
I thought we had met in Phoenix, but I might be wrong.
Maybe we did, but I know we were together in the SCU in Huntsville in 2022,
which is a brilliant conference.
Oh, it was fantastic.
That
one was spectacular because we got to hear John Alexander point at Eric Davis and say, "Why don't you ask him? He's the author of the Wilson Davis documents," and there was a bunch of other stuff. And I met David Grush,
who is amazing in his own right.
Yes, he is. He's amazing and important, and a nice guy.
He is a nice guy. Yeah. I have not met anyone there that wasn't, and I was lucky. I got to meet John Alexander in Eureka Springs. And so it was really nice to see him again in Huntsville because I think he's really a nice man. He's very fascinating. And he actually is lethal if he wants to be. But he's one of those people that has been around ufology for decades.
Very, very long. Whenever there's a truly interesting thing in ufology, John seems to be around.
That's true.
I can think of only one time in the years that I actually beat him to a topic, and that was he and I are both friends with Chris Bledsoe, but I managed to get to him 2 months earlier.
I was just talking with Chris today, actually, because I reread his UFOs of God. And, I'm sitting there and I'm going through it and I'm seeing friends, he's talking about Chase and Pete and, all these other people I know. And he's talking about John. And I'm just like, this is so much fun.
Yeah, because it was fun being in the book. I got to tell you, a lot of people are you the Science Bob was in Chris's book? So his book seems to be very popular, which I'm very happy for him.
I am too. It's a great book.
Don't know how from 2007 until almost 2020, Chris struggled a lot because of the non-human intelligence interacting with him. They inadvertently gave him rheumatoid arthritis with their radiation, and they cured him of his Crohn's disease, which probably saved his life. But they gave him rheumatoid arthritis, and later he had enough, and they did their usual visit, and he says, "Look, I'm doing this stuff for you, but I am hurting. This rheumatoid arthritis is just about to end me."
Yeah, and it was.
In 2 weeks, he was out of pain, stopped taking the horrible drugs, and completely recovered. That's kind of amazing.
It's beyond amazing.
I had 3 heart attacks before I went to see Chris. I had coronary bypass surgery, so I was okay. But you're left with damage when you have 3 heart attacks. So I went to him and met with him and talked with him, and we got along. And I saw the entities, and they saw me. We had 2 massive ones. They flew right over the treetops. And so I saw them and could see the light shining on me from them. Okay, so I went home, had some experiences, agreed to help him prepare his first major public address in a PowerPoint slide form about all of his evidence, help him arrange the evidence, help him enhance the evidence, and so forth. By that, I mean he had pictures that the exposure was wrong, so I fixed the exposure. We found some astounding things in his photograph. Anyway, so I agreed to help him, and the person that was with me got cured of a permanent problem. It apparently wasn't permanent if you can have a miracle. And then a few months later, I retired because my school was going to be closed for over a year with COVID. So I just retired. Right. And I went to my cardiovascular surgeon before I moved several hundred miles and had to find another cardiovascular surgeon because this was kind of sudden. I mean, it was after I met Chris, I retired in May, so it was pretty quick. So anyway,
Right.
I moved hundreds of miles, and I went to the cardiovascular surgeon. He did a bunch of checkups, and then he says, "Let me put you on the treadmill." And he says, "I want to do it with dye." So he put the radioactive dye in and did a treadmill, and I had no trouble. I says, "There's no pain or anything. I feel fine." He says, "Yeah, well, you ought to. You have 100% heart function and the heart of a 30-year-old."
There you go.
It was a miraculous cure from the ravages of heart disease. I mean, that was the period of time when I went from, I want to be a scientist who's friendly with Chris, but I'm figuring out what's going on, to, I don't care about doing science with this guy. He's my friend.
Yeah.
And it was just a complete trend. And I tell you, it changed my life. I had hitchhiker, had UFOs, had orbs in my home, met all sorts of experiencers, and etc. So it's just utterly transformative of my life having met him.
I am glad, because, when back in the day, he and I had talked on Facebook for just a little bit. And then, I got hacked and I had to change my name, whatever. But anyway, so I sent him another request, and I'm like, this is me. Really, it's me. And so, and I had started, going through the book again, and it was just like, this is so cool. And in fact, we were just talking, tonight, and it was a nice conversation. I'm really so impressed with him, and not because of
sweet man.
He is sweet.
He is the sweetest man. He is just the gentlest man, and he loves interacting with people. And even when I was at the Fear River Festival in Wilmington, North Carolina with him, and thousands of people came, and he just went through them one by one, shook their hand, listened to their stories, never rushed anybody. None of his family did. They were all there. They are tight knit, and they basically, all of his children and their spouses and their grandchildren were there.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very Southern, but it's also really good to see.
It is very Southern. But that's okay. Southern. That's how I roll, so it'll be all good anyway.
Exactly. No, you're still in Montgomery?
I'm in Birmingham.
Birmingham. Okay. I forgot what was Birmingham or Montgomery.
I knew it was
one of the population centers. Yeah, I'm from Clark County, little town, and I lived in Opelika for
first degrees from Auburn, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a bachelor's degree from Auburn.
Yeah.
And then master's degrees and PhDs from elsewhere. Anyway, but yeah, I started in Auburn, so I'm a good old Alabama boy.
Yeah.
Born in Tennessee, but I moved to Alabama when I was 1. So I
just as soon as you could, right?
Yeah, as quick as my parents could get me there.
Well, that's one of the things that I had so much fun, and I always have so much fun at the Scientific Coalition and UAP Studies conference, other things. And it really blows me away, because that really is a family atmosphere.
It really is. I mean, everybody hangs out. I mean, look, people that are so secretive, don't talk to anybody, etc., like Tim Taylor hanging out on the wall, just watching stuff, and then left.
Yeah.
And then Travis and George and all those people came, and it was the one person I thought might come but couldn't was Brandon Fugel. But I got to talk to him later, and we've interacted. So it's not like I didn't. It's that I was hoping he would be there. But
I would have liked to have seen him there too. He was at Contact later that year.
Yeah.
For a bit.
Yeah. That, and if you really want to see those people, you need to go to Phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, really, the only person that, other than Travis, that I know from the show is Jim Morris.
Yeah.
Morris.
No, Jim. Oh, hang on a minute. You're causing me to have a neuroflash.
I know, right? But
hey, Lala, what's Jim's name? She didn't hear me. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
Morrison or something.
He's a scientist.
He is, but he's the ranch manager.
Oh, also. Different Jim.
Different Jim.
Yes. Yeah, Marcy. Yeah, you're right. I thought you were talking about the scientist.
No, but this guy struck me. He was at a conference, and he's just like, text me. I don't answer anything else. And I'm
exactly.
Done.
Yeah. So Brandon, of course, is extremely active on social media.
Yes.
It's most easy to interact with him on X or Twitter or X. So if you can tolerate X, there's still a lot of people on it.
I don't really get bothered by it because when I'm on, I'm there to either promote a show or try to find somebody that I want to have on, or, I don't really. I find X to be easy.
No, it's not. It's not that it's hard. It's that the personalities that do the large-scale interactions, some of them are quite toxic.
Which is why those aren't my first choice.
You check into their backgrounds, and they're felons, drug addicts, alcoholics, and they seem to run a lot of the social interactions on there. And it's hard. You have to do it yourself, or you're going to run into trouble.
Well, I guess that's why I don't run into them, because when I'm on X, I'm pushing a show because we run on X, or I'm looking for someone specific.
Yeah.
And I just find that it's a good way to get in communication with someone, because most people will know my name, but they're not going to be really active on Facebook or, things of that nature. And X is a quick and easy communication tool.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
I don't play very much there.
The scientist I was thinking about, he was there on the first season of the show, and he was a serious scientist, and he left, and I figured out why later. He was a protege of and interacted with and worked for Hal Puthoff.
There you go. Okay.
He worked for the Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin for Hal Puthoff. He did his thing, did his physics, got his little sensors together, and went off and did his own thing. And he's now selling them. And they are the kind of sensors that people who are experiencers should, or regularly go out and see craft, should have, because it measures all sorts of things in the environment. And
so this is different than DAP, right?
It's a UFO DAP, and it are similar. It has all of the sensors that are not cameras in UFO DAP.
Okay.
And it costs $340 and not $3,000.
Well, that's much better in my opinion. Because I'm privately funded, right?
Exactly. So the thing, me too. So the thing that I'm doing, I might go for some public funding for this, but anyway, I'm doing it. So you can take your cell phone, and on your cell phone you can download 3 apps, and then the 3 apps, if you run it through your own app, also on the phone, can do the following things. You can log into Flight Radar 24 or one of those things, and it will tell you every aircraft in your sky and what they are and where they are.
That includes satellites, right?
No, not that one. This just
ADS-B. Planes.
Just ADS-B. Then you do your satellite tracking one, and it tracks every single satellite that NORAD publicly acknowledges and puts out orbital descriptions for, mathematical descriptions of their orbits. And so you use a program that runs on your device, uses your location, and can tell you if a satellite is above your horizon and also illuminated by the sun, you can see it. So it tells you where on the sky there's a satellite that is visible. Okay, so that's number 2. And number 3, it tells you where the large astronomical objects are that everybody mistakes for a UFO.
Yes,
So you
indeed.
throw all that stuff into this program, and then it's going to open your camera, and you'll point your camera at the sky, and there'll be a thing on your screen. But it'll also tell you where any of those other things are on there by marks. So you can look at the sky and know if it's an airplane, astronomical thing, or et cetera, a satellite. And so you know that's something you can ignore. So if you find something that's not one of those things, then you follow it.
I've had that twice. I use my Sky Guide.
Yeah.
Which also provides
that's a good thing. But what I'm talking about is I want you to be able to record and see at the same time. And reject the bad stuff.
Yes. What was that app again? Those apps again?
Flight Radar 24, and let's see, that does ADS-B and over your house. And then I forgot what the name of the satellite. I will give you the name of the satellite stuff, and you can put it up later. Because
I will do that.
The astronomical stuff. It's one of many apps that does augmented reality.
You know,
so I'm thinking about using the astronomical map with augmented reality, and just feed the other stuff into it, because I think that might be a 3-week piece of work to tell everybody how to do it.
That would be so much fun.
I think, but the other thing I've got going is I used to be a hotshot superstar programmer when I was younger, and I wrote millions of lines of code. But then I became a manager, and when you become a manager, that's a 10 or 20 point permanent decrease in your IQ.
So I would agree with that.
I'm teasing, but anyway.
No, but you're not in.
What it is, you get rusty. You get rusty.
You're not in there.
I was no longer this hotshot programmer, but now I am again.
Yeah.
And the now I am again is the magic of ChatGPT.
There you go.
You tell it what you want, and it writes you code, but you have to know enough to specify what the code is supposed to do and how it's supposed to work and how you want it constructed. So you give it quite a paragraph, not just a sentence, and it writes good code. Now you also want to tell it what testing that you want done, and it'll write code that tests the code you just wrote.
Oh my!
Look, this is utterly transformative. It's my engineering and science background along with my math degree that let me know what to tell it to do, and it does it, and I can check it quickly. So what used to take me months to do is now a week's work.
That's insane.
It's amazing.
That is so cool.
It's beyond cool.
Are you having the best time with that?
Right now, you are. It's like the best. So I've written a bunch of, like 10 tough pieces of code just to test it. But now that I know how to do it, I'm ready to go. This stuff is amazing.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Well, one of the things that blows me away is that nobody uses these easy programs. I was using my Sky Guide just because I would see something and want to know what it was, because I'm nosy. I'm a hammock layer. I love being outside. I have dogs, so I'm always outside. And even though they go out by themselves, I go out with them. And I would just see things and I would be like, oh, what is that? And the only time that I ever got caught out without my phone, I had gone out. I was so excited because over just above my tree line were 2, they were cans. They looked like cans, right? They weren't airplanes, because we have a refueling wing here and I see them a lot, right, when they're training.
Yeah.
But they were like 2 cans that were connected by a straight thing. It wasn't like a hose coming down like they would have to refuel. and they were eliminated from inside.
Oh my.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, maybe that's Starlink. So I'm excited because I'd never seen Starlink. And I came in, I told David, I just saw Starlink, I think. So I looked, it wasn't anywhere around. So I thought, okay. I Googled and I was like, okay, how many links are there in a Starlink? They're in the 20s. I was like, well, it wasn't 2. Okay. So I remembered that when I was at the UFO Congress, a guy had come up to Mark D'Antonio with a video and had something similar. And I thought, well, I'll ask Mark. Well, he didn't remember that.
He's a good one to ask.
He is, but he didn't remember that. And I said, well, you told the guy it was part of Starlink. He said there wouldn't be just 2 of Starlink.
Correct. So if you're going to, you can see 1 or 2 at a time, but they're not traveling together. So you can go out. Look, when you get this app that I'm talking about, or one you already have, you can go out and it is impossible to miss a Starlink.
Well, I want the one that you have because I have mine.
Utterly impossible. So I have Starlink. I have it. So you open up the app and the globe, every square inch of it is covered with these satellites. They're everywhere, but over your house at any one time, there's 2 or 3. But if you get them coming over in a train, which only lasts about a day or 2, because that only happens right after one of their launches. Now, the good thing about Starlink is they're launching every 3 days.
Well, I did see one when I was in, where was I? In California for Contact in the Desert. They had one. Mark was doing a Skywatch, and he knew that they were going to be coming over. There had been a launch, and it was like 27. And so when I saw that, I'm like, that was totally not what I saw.
Right.
I knew that wasn't.
It's very distinct, and they look like Santa Claus's reindeer going straight over in a line.
They do, just like, ooh.
Except they're shiny. So let me tell you an interesting coincidence. And I should have known as soon as I met Mark and we hit it off and got to know and like each other.
He's a pistol. Yeah.
He's a pistol, but I know him and I like him.
I do too.
And so he and I have had the exact same anomalous experience. And I thought it was not possible that anyone else in the world could have the experience I had, but I was wrong. So had he. So both of us, doing our day job for the government, spent time on a nuclear submarine.
You did not.
And both of us had an underwater, unidentified, submerged object.
I did not know that happened to you too.
On the USS Hampton in 1998.
That's so cool.
That's wild.
What did you think?
Well, first of all, I didn't know. And then I said, I heard the master chief or senior chief, I can't remember which one, who was running sonar, come out and tell the captain that we have an object. And it was audible. And furthermore, he said, here's the parameters. And it was faster than the speed of sound, an unbelievable depth.
Oh my God.
But you could hear it, but it was not overwhelming. I went, how did that not roll us over? Because the turbulence and disturbance in the water should have been a tidal wave. But nothing. You could just hear it. And captain says, this is the only word I will ever speak to you. Don't mention it again. Fast walker. And that was it. I was not spoken of, and nobody on the boat would talk about it.
Wow. That's wow. I can't believe that happened to both of you.
Both of us.
That's so cool.
Both of us were riders. We had a job to do, and the boat's tasking for us was to get us where we could do our job.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting that both of us had. And he went to talk to the committees and told them about me.
I think that's fun.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious because the first time that he told me that, I was like, "Oh, you were so full of it." And he's like, "No, really. It really happened."
Have you seen how skeptical he is elsewhere?
Yes.
So he's not going to make up something like that unless it's true.
And I was really surprised he shared it because of his because he is such a skeptic.
Well, I believe that he and others have affiliations like both of us do.
Yeah.
Have now been okayed to say certain things. Like, I will never, under penalty of death, tell you what I was doing on that submarine.
Right.
But I'll tell you what happened that had nothing to do with what I was doing.
That's just amazing.
Tell you where it was. I won't tell you anything about anything except that was weird.
That is weird. And to me, doing what I do, okay, to me it's so weird that I have two people I know that I know their reputations, I know their personality, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both of us are very outgoing.
Yeah.
Both of us are scientists. Both of us are astronomer, and I'm a mathematician and an engineer. And it's just so interesting that both of us, given our weird jobs, needed to go out on a submarine. So then I met Tim Gallaudet at a conference in New York.
Yeah.
And I talked to Tim for a while, and he and I had both been on the same submarine, even 10 years after me.
Oh, okay.
So we began just going over our internal notes. What did we know? And I says, Tim, I have a hypothesis. And he says, what's that? I said, if a ship or boat that belongs to the United States Navy goes out into blue waters, that means where it gets deep, and maybe off the continental shelf, but deep, they all have experiences. And he says, yep, every ship.
Have you talked to more than one?
Every one of them for years. The Navy sees this stuff all the time on almost every ship. And they've just covered it up.
You're talking about not just underwater craft. You're talking about top water craft too.
Ship that leaves the coast and goes outside of territorial waters has an experience.
Do you hear about the stuff in the Indian Ocean?
I heard that there was a submarine. I know this story. A submarine was going through the Indian Ocean, and it heard an unusual racket on its equipment. And it slowed down and stopped or whatever and began searching and saw lights at the bottom. I mean, look, I want you to understand this. The Indian Ocean is not shallow.
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine how bright the lights were to be seen at, say, a few hundred feet below the surface, all the way from the bottom? That is a bright light.
Especially when I know how murky underwater is.
It's not that murky. It's pretty clear, but never mind. That is a lot of photon scattering for it to make it all the way to near the surface. Because look, they can go a few hundred feet deep, but they can't go miles deep.
Mm-mm.
They don't need to. There's no reason for them to.
That's phenomenal.
It was unreal. That story is apocryphal, so everyone knows it.
Yeah. I think that I find the Indian Ocean fascinating because I have friends when I was young who were in the Navy, and they weren't on the same craft. They were not in the same branch of service. Really, most of them were Navy, but not all. But when they were working and they were in the Indian Ocean, each one had an experience with things that would follow them, with things that were interactive that shouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm. So
And
I can attest to that. So I got on the USS Blue Ridge in Thailand in 2008, and I was on it for a few months. And we went right up the coast all the way to Vladivostok and then came back to Japan. So the first pass through going toward Japan from the Philippines, we drove through a typhoon.
oh my.
It was awesome. So I decided to go up on the bridge because I pretty much had rights. I could go anywhere. It's a pretty nice experience. So anyway, I was just sitting there watching them ride these waves that were like 40, 50 foot seas and 90 knot winds. It was unreal.
Wow.
Okay, so then I noticed that all of a sudden, all that rain, we weren't in the eye wall, we were out in the clouds, and all the rain all of a sudden stopped. And I couldn't understand why, because I knew where we were. So I just walked up and looked out and up, and there was a faint glow over the entire ship, but just in the clouds. And I went, oh my God, what is that? It's bigger than the ship. And
holy crap.
a couple of seconds later, it got brighter and went boom, straight off. I never could see the structure,
Right.
but that it was a well-lit UFO and took off was obvious. And it blocked all of the rain of a typhoon from a several 100-foot long ship.
That's insane. Wow.
So but those two experiences, my 2 long trips on the water, talking to Tim Gallaudet, let me know it happens all the time to every boat that goes out if they stay out long enough, and most of them do.
Well, most of them are out for a long time. And, you know, it's really funny because I worked for a company that sold esprit de corps items to military units. And I wasn't a salesperson, but I would reach out to people like a lot of chief of boats and that kind of thing in a nuclear base, a nuclear submarine base. And I was talking to one of them and I was just like, so when you go out, have you ever had anything weird happen? And he was like, well, I could tell you, but you don't have a clearance. And I don't have the clearance to tell you. And I was like,
yeah, if they're in uniform,
okay. Yeah.
If they're in uniform, it's very different from when you are a civilian and you come on as a rider. I don't have the same restrictions. I didn't get the same read in. So nobody told me I couldn't tell the story. So here we are.
Well, you know, I got tickled because at the time I was a big Clancy fan. Right. I will always be a big Clancy fan.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But when I was talking with the COB, I was like, so if you're out and you're getting pinged, is this stuff that's, you know, you're coding, is that really? And he was like, I cannot talk to you about my boat.
No, he can't.
And I said, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm so sorry. But because I'm not military, I didn't realize that would be, because it was in a book.
Secret, big time.
Yeah, but it was in a book. So,
but you got to understand, that's discussing stealth technology.
Yeah.
What is underwater stealth technology, but it's still stealth. And they're just not going to discuss it.
Well, but it was like, I apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just read about that. And I was wondering if that's, because that's a great protection. If that's true, I just didn't know if it was true or not. So I got some really fast, hard lessons when I had that job. But that's okay. So
well, the one thing, look, being I was cleared to walk over the boat, so it was really interesting going from the screw all the way to the nose on that submarine.
I'm sure.
Very few people get to do that. And it was fascinating. It is just fascinating. I mean, beyond belief.
Well, I find submarines fascinating anyway, because I couldn't do that. I literally would struggle and have to be sedated, I'm sure. But but a friend of ours, Pete Klotsky, was the head of a base. He's a great big 6.5 foot tall man who's a submariner. Yeah. I'm like, how did they fold you up to get you in there?
I gotta tell you, so I'm 5'10".
Yeah.
And that right there is where I whang my head going through a door.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's rough. And then it's hard to see in this camera, but right there is the depression where I really hurt my head.
Bless your heart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but, and
that's a genuine bless your heart, just so people listening know. And you'll know because you're from here, but it's all about tone, people. It's all about tone.
All about tone. The tone tells you whether it's a GTH or bless you.
Yes. And it was truly bless you.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I'm sure I had a concussion, but I didn't dare let on.
Wow. Eek, actually. So if you were going to go out somewhere and do what we do, which is look for things, have you ever had craft interact with you?
Yeah. So you remember I was with Chris Bledsoe and they interacted with us while we were out there. And then Lala and we can go outside and we have had interactions.
So what do you think the draw is for them with y'all?
Well, the two, they talked to the point that she could interact with them telepathically. And they told us they want us to continue helping with soft disclosure by telling everybody about our experiences. So we share all of our experience data on Facebook. And it's quite a bit. We've slowed down a bit because we're doing other things, but especially after it warms up, we need to go out and start gathering more data probably with renewed equipment.
Right. Well, I find that really interesting. When I first started noticing that there are craft over my house, it's generally, well, the only time that I can be pretty sure that's going to happen is during a meteor shower. And I had told Rich, and also mentioned to Peter that they go and they sit on Orion's belt. And I see them come in and they just stop. And they're just kind of hanging out.
They can easily hide during those kind of things.
Yes. And it's like they're watching the show too. And then I'm like, well, they're above that. Are they really watching it? Or are they watching us watch it? Because it's so consistent. I mean, seriously, Bob, it's so consistent. And Peter was like, well, you should film that. And I'm like, well, I don't have the kind of cameras. I'm a ghost hunter. My cameras are not that distant, but I got a new telescope.
And this is the Peter Reale? Peter Reale? Yeah. Yes, yeah. So there's a bunch of different telescopes you can get. I have the Cyanix Opsin, which is low light level. And man, people get a low light level camera, they don't even know how much stuff is hidden.
Well, I got an Orion Dobson.
Yeah.
And it has the camera holder.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to start doing.
So, how big is it?
It is
what's the diameter?
I don't remember.
So the typical Dobsonian Newtonian is actually a little too big. It's a little too big because the field of view is too small.
And I have a hard time with that. Yeah.
If you saw something in the sky, you'd have an impossible time finding it in the eyepiece. and if it's moving, you couldn't track it.
Right.
It's better to
I
get.
have a hard time with still objects.
It's better to get a zoom lens on a 35 millimeter camera.
I have that.
Yeah, that's what I would use. I have
Really?
Canon. I have a Canon EOS RA. That's have an astronomical modification to whatever is on the EOS Rs, and it lets in near infrared. So it's better doing infrared all the way up through blue. So and then I have 2 zoom lenses. They are really nice ones, and they're fast. So these are fast zoom lenses with a high-end camera and sensor.
Okay.
And
because I've got an M5 and I've got some pretty nice lenses with that. So
yeah.
I'll just do that.
Do a video.
Yeah.
Just let it capture everything. And then once you've captured everything, you can look at frames and zoom in.
I love doing that. I do that with water. So I can do that with the sky.
Yep.
I hadn't really thought about setting the Nikon.
Just make sure you focus at infinity and leave it there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
That'll be fun.
Yep.
We can share notes the next time.
Leave the aperture wide open.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do that. Thank you.
On a tripod, you'll get great stuff because you won't be shaking it like you do your phone.
Well, I do beach photography, so it has to be on a tripod.
There you go.
So, because if I'm trying to capture water, then
if
I mess it up, it's on me. And I hate messing it up. But I also shoot family. If I'm out with my camera doing stuff and people are like, would you take our pictures? And I'm like, well, sure, I'll take your pictures. So, and then he just proposed, will you take our pictures? I'm like, well, heck yeah. Let's capture that moment. So, and then they're always surprised because I just give them a card. Here, take this with you. But
there you go. There you go.
Well,
those are special pictures.
Yeah. I mean, usually it's just the right thing to do. I always have extra cards with me, and not all of them are monster cards. So if I'm going to do that, then I just pop one in and here you go, smile, act like you love each other. I can't believe he just asked you to marry him. Let's do this. So it's fun. I'm a sap.
Good luck.
I know, right? Well, I'm so happy that I mean, I hope everybody's that happy. I like to see you're happy.
Oh yeah, I am. But that is one. Oh, that's a tree. I thought it was a dream catcher.
It is. Well,
it's a dream catcher. Oh,
no,
it looks like an
that is actually the tree of life.
Ah, okay, good.
So let's see.
Yeah, your head blocked off the bottom, so I thought it was a dream catcher. It's interesting.
There you go.
Hey, I get it. Beautiful.
I have dream catchers, but that's the tree of life. So I have all kinds of eclectic things in here. This is my oasis kind of, and my junk room. And I have fun little paranormal equipment. This is a
I especially like the blow up alien.
Well, my husband, I had a blue one, and he could not handle his air. It was gone. So then my husband got me these. Well, he got me my first one, and he has been with me since I started doing my shows.
There you go.
But he died on me. So the new one, that side. The green one is brand new, not anybody I was playing. I have so much trouble with doing that. But he is Al too. So I just
I see those all the time out in Roswell and other places, and a Pine Bush, yeah. I like going to Pine Bush. I like that. Oh, it's terrific. So I got to hang out with Travis and with Kathleen Martin for the whole day.
Isn't she alive?
She's great.
Oh, she's one of the best people I know.
That, and she's like pretty officially retired now.
Yeah. So. Well, it was because Stanton was my very first ufologist, and we became really good friends. So he taught me about ufology. When I read his books, the very first time I talked, did I ever tell you about the first time I talked to him?
I didn't even know you knew him.
Yeah, we were friends. But the first time I had called and left a message for him or sent an email and said, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'd like to schedule an interview with you. But this is my phone number. So I had my watch on and I was doing kid stuff, right? And so my phone rang and I didn't recognize the number. I just answered it on my watch and it was Stanton. And he said, "This is Stanton Friedman. I had a message to call this number." I was like, "Oh no, I'll have to call you back. I am Dick Tracy-ing you. I'm just going to call you right back." Okay. So I ran and grabbed my phone, called him back. He's like, "What is this Dick Tracy-ing you speak of?" And I said, "I'm talking to you on my watch, Stanton." That's what it is. It's my watch.
He should have gotten that analogy.
Well, but it was so unexpected, I think, for him in that context, right?
Yeah.
And because this was years ago. And it was so funny because he came on, we had a great time. And so we actually got to finally meet face to face at Eureka Springs. And he was so upset because they had lost his luggage, the bag with his merch. So he was not going to have anything and he was disconcerted. So later, they found the bag, got everything done, and I went down to the merch room and he had sold out everything, just boom, like that. So we had plenty of time. We just sat there and talked for the whole rest of the afternoon. And even before that, we had been friends because we talked a lot. And if I had a question about something, I would just send him a message and say, "What is this? When did this happen? Do you know about this?" And he was always gracious and brilliant. And the last time I interviewed him and we spoke was the Wednesday before he passed away. And when he came on the phone with me, on the show with me, he said, "I really don't feel very well. Can I just do an hour?" I said, "You can do whatever you want to do. If you don't feel good, I can get somebody back in here. It's okay." And he was like, "No, I want to talk to you." So at the end of the hour, I'd gotten somebody lined up to come in the second hour. And when it got to time to do that, he really was hesitant to go. He didn't really want to leave. And so I was like, "Well, stay. Just stay." Because it was a friend that I had gotten. And he was like, "Oh, I probably should just go." I said, "Well, when you get back from California, then, we'll talk some more and we'll, schedule something else." And Chase Klotsky is who let me know that he had passed away.
Oh, yeah. I know Chase.
So, yeah, we've been friends for a long time. And she knew that I loved him. So it was so devastating. And, very few people know that he and I had that friendship because neither one of us talk about our friends much. We're just we are who we are. But he was really somebody that took the time to educate me and cared that I didn't sound like an idiot, and he was just funny. He was such a funny man.
Can I tell you a thing that bothers me about Stanton? Is the modern people who are kind of prominent and interactive and outgoing in ufology now, and especially the younger ones, they have no idea who reawakened the entire world to Roswell. They just don't even know.
You're right.
And it was dead until Stanton decided on a synchronicity of finding out where what's his name was, went off and interviewed him. And then Jesse Marcel, found out where Jesse Marcel was, called him on the phone, got him on the phone, and decided to go interview him. And here we are. And now Roswell is that thing, which everyone knows is typical of the kind of thing our government will do that we should not trust them about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
And I think it's part of the reason because it's developed a culture of hiding things from the executive, and they do it all the time.
They do. Hence the things you can't talk about.
All the time.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that got me, I got a phone call last year, and Jacques Vallée with Paola had written a new book called Trinity. Are you familiar with Trinity?
Yes.
Well,
and its controversy.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, that's cool. And they were like, well, he wants you to interview him. And I said, well, if Jacques Vallée wants me to interview him, just tell me what time. I'll be available. And I had had surgery, and it was right here. I, thyroid stuff, whatever. And so I looked like a murder victim. I really did.
And how often do you get a chance to interview Jacques Vallée?
Well, that was the kicker, right? And I was just like, Jacques, I cannot do the best job. I cannot do the best job if I do that, on this day. I've just had surgery. And he was like, you'll be fine. You're lovely. You'll be fine. And I'm like, it's not about my lovely. I'm tired. I hurt, blah, blah. So I didn't say all that. But so what did I do? I grabbed a scarf, baby, and I just popped that on there. And he was like, oh, you look very Parisian. But but that's one of those things that, I didn't even know about Trinity. I had been reached out to by one of the young men whose family was involved in that. And I didn't know about it. So I didn't know who that was talking to me. And I wasn't belittling. I'm never belittling, but I'm like, I'm confused because I don't know about this. Can you tell me more? And I think I might have offended him, but I wasn't being offensive. And so then I'm reading this book. So I always read everything before I have somebody on, so I know what I'm talking about. And I'm reading this book and I see the name. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. On it. So, and that was somebody, the only thing I could find about that man was that he was constantly being photographed with Stanton and Kathy. And I was like, who are you? Are you, are you just, what? Yeah. So anyway, so I had to reach out and say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You should have filled me in. So I felt like a moron, really.
Well, I don't know. So the thing that's so incongruous to me is Jacques and Paola are very careful.
They are.
But boy, oh boy, the evidence others have gathered about him is pretty definitive.
Yeah.
And it is very troubling to see.
Well, and it's very, from my side of the coin, before Jacques had written this book, before they had written this book, I'm sitting there being reached out to by this man. The only pictures I can find of him are with Stanton and Kathy.
Yep.
Or as a child. I don't see any background information. He's not giving me any background information.
Yep.
And I'm not going to interview somebody that I don't know who they are.
Right.
Because,
of course you're
not. This was pre-fate. Okay. This was paranormal experienced. And my reputation, I'm even more careful with fate. Right. Because I'm very proud to represent this magazine. Hey, Mark Eddie. But I was very much careful with my reputation because it was just me,
Right.
And I'm not going to tarnish my reputation just because, especially with someone that won't give me information.
Yeah. So, I have the book. I've read it. It's fascinating, but I just be honest, I don't know what to make of it.
I don't know what to make of it either because I do know people with the first craft who worked for companies that were involved with retrieval. It wasn't just military.
Right.
And I know people years later who were assigned where it was taken. I never heard of there being two. I have never heard of there being two.
No, me either.
And because of that, do I find it interesting? Yes. Do I trust Jacques? Yes. I don't know Paola. How do you say her name?
Paola.
I don't know her very well, but I do know her reputation.
Well, that and she was best friends with Philip Corso. Now,
yes,
people know that his book is controversial.
Yes.
But the people who get involved know that was not the book he wanted to write, and his partner screwed him over.
Yes.
What can I say? And Philip was trying to get the correct manuscript published for years, and his publisher wouldn't hear it.
Which is crazy.
It's just madness.
It is madness. Yeah, I don't understand that. Why do you think that was?
The only thing I could believe that completely makes sense, with zero evidence, please listen to me, people, okay. Zero evidence. If he was put there to make Philip Corso look like a fool, he couldn't have done a better job.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the Occam's razor tells you that's the simplest explanation.
Yeah.
And his son, they have hung out. He's hung out with George Knapp.
Yeah.
And others, and you know, Knapp doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's
at all.
Tough old codger.
He is.
I'm proud that he interacts with me quietly because I don't ever blab. Yeah. I won't tell you anything we've ever said to each other, and he knows how I feel about him. I want to tell your listeners.
That's how you have
I want to tell your listeners something.
Yeah.
All of modern ufology, the stuff we are going through right now, happened because George Knapp got the senator from Nevada and Robert Bigelow and others in a room. And everything that happened after, OSAP, these videos being released, all of it is because George Knapp existed.
I would agree with that statement. I would totally agree with that statement.
We owe him our respect. And the other thing that people don't know is George risked life, limb, and liberty going to Russia in the early 1990s, sneaking around, talking to former KGB folks who were involved in their UFO retrieval program, and brought back stacks of paper covering their entire program and turned them over to our government.
Astounding.
He is first-rate investigative reporter.
Well, and he has really, the only reason that we know anything is because of him.
Exactly right.
I mean, the only reason that there's anything about Area 51,
him knowing John Lear and doing the thing with Bob Lazar.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed the world so much that Barack Obama unclassified Area 51 by hanging a medal around Shirley, what's her name's neck, when he gave her the medal, Presidential Medal of Freedom, and talking about Area 51. Yeah. Shirley MacLaine. And so that was the declassification of what Area 51's status was.
And you know what's so funny is that it's still treated. I mean, it's still a tourist trap. They evolved.
Rachel is definitely a tourist trap, but they still do their work out there.
Oh yes, but because of the reputation, I went because I just wanted to do it. I took the little trip out there last year.
You go to the mailbox as Rachel?
The mailbox is gone.
Okay.
Somebody stole the mailbox.
Oh, wow.
But I did go and have the burger. So
there you go.
There's that.
So let me tell you my favorite. You have to solve this logic problem. Here's my favorite. You have to solve this logic problem. If Bob Lazar is a fake, then you have to explain the following. He took John Lear and dozens of people out into the desert and said, tonight at 9 o'clock, the saucer's going to fly above that mountain. He did it multiple times, and it happened every time right when he said it would. Right over top of Area 51 and S4. The craft flew. Lear took videos of it, and it's been stabilized and averaged, and it's the sport model. You cannot explain how Bob Lazar did that and think he does not work there.
Exactly. But it's just more of those things, right?
Stanton totally debunked his MIT status and all of those stuff. But whatever else is true and not true, that shows he knew what was going on at S4 and Area 51 with the UFOs.
Yeah. Well, I lean toward not really doubting that.
His description of the interior of the craft, helping people draw it, what work he did, listen to it. Listen to it in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. The story has never changed.
It hasn't. And that's the kicker. For me, that's the kicker. Because even the most prolific con man faker screws up.
They make mistakes.
They do. And, the fact that, and sometimes somebody that's really telling the truth will get something confused too in the retelling. It happens.
I mean, who knows?
But he doesn't.
Look. One of the greatest books on Roswell was written by a person who later we found out he had exaggerated his credentials.
Yeah.
Does that make him a bad person and he's written a bad book? That is the single best, most complete, most utterly impossible to deny book on Roswell.
Yeah.
And I don't care if he didn't have a master's degree. Why do I care? Why do I care that Bob Lazar didn't go to MIT? The rest of the stuff, it's not possible to explain it other than Bob actually worked there.
Yeah.
One of the most secretive places on the planet Earth. I wonder if they didn't introduce him to and give him the secrets, hoping he would go out and talk to John Lear.
I think that's a great possibility. I mean,
but he actually was there or he wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason.
Because surely the government by then, the FBI had John Lear bugged.
You think?
Oh, yes, I do.
So,
I absolutely do.
Yes. It's so much. I'm sorry. I love this aspect, right? To me, trying to understand, Stanton, science-based. This is it. Blah, 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 blah. And not in any way detracting from Stanton. I more respect for him than anybody else really in that field. And his attention to detail would sometimes make me crazy because I am
Oh, I get it.
Okay. But that's the reason that I learned so much from him and that everybody else has too. he's a great educator. But it's really interesting to me when people are so quick to, oh, this is crap. This is BS. Lazar, what a joke. You cannot possibly think that, I get that a lot. You cannot possibly think that he knows what he's talking about. I'm like, really? What part of it seems fake to you?
Exactly.
Show me consistent inconsistencies.
I remember the scientist's name from Skinwalker that's doing the MUPAS device. It's Jim Segala.
Yeah.
And he worked he left on temporary assignment, working for Hal Puthoff to go to Skinwalker Ranch. And what do I think? I think he got the data that Hal Puthoff wanted him to get. He tried to use the devices that Hal Puthoff wanted him to use. And when he got them, he left them with those devices and took the data back to Hal Puthoff.
Yeah. Don't you just love watching what's happening?
I did intelligence analysis and other things for so long. It's impossible for me to not follow breadcrumbs.
Yes. And that's why I love talking to people like you. You're so much fun to me because I'm so fascinated by all of these topics. I love anything anomalous. I think it's interesting. I love the fact that this is something that is currently in the process of being proven to where there is going to be no further discussion about, well, this isn't. Well, yeah, because you know what this is.
So let me tell you the thing that I think Stanton would have the hardest time with.
What?
Is the science of consciousness coupled with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Is going, his thought patterns, which were smart and well trained, beginning to look like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
They're extinct. And they're going to be
replaced. What were there at the time?
No. Look, he was great. He was what was needed.
Yeah.
Because there was too much nuttiness.
Too much woo.
What woo-woo is going on now is telling us what's important.
Yeah.
And here's the okay. So as a Bayesian probabilist, understanding how to do experiments, I can tell you the following. I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to flip a coin. And every flip of a coin, I'm going to talk to an experiencer about what they've seen. And based on what they've seen, I'm going to say, is this consistent with them telling the truth about something, or is it a nothing burger and it's actually provincial? It's everyday. It's prosaic. Do you know that there have been 129,699 reported UFO cases in the last 20 years?
I did not.
So if there's an error rate of, suppose 51% are accurate and 49% are not, the probability of one of those events not being an actual UFO is getting really tiny.
You reckon?
From the math.
Yes. Well, and it's all about the math.
And if it's the 6 or 7%, like Jacques and everybody else who's ever looked at it says, it's a discovery. In all of that random data, we have discovered real UFOs that are non-human intelligence.
Sure, we have. I mean,
but people want to discount anecdotal evidence just because the majority are in error. That's not how probability works.
You're right.
I won't even tell you. I don't even need to know which ones were in error or not. I can compute that the probability of that collection of data contain exactly one real UFO was exhausted to impossibility long before I got to the end of the data.
Sure.
Probably took Probably took 10,000 of them to get to it's a discovery, which is a 5 sigma event is discovery. And do people know that particles in physics are found by these colliders, and it's 5 sigma event is a discovery of a new particle?
No,
Not
they do
I
not.
can take it, not that I can take it out and measure it with my teaspoon, because nobody can. But the probability that it's this, when it gets to if the hypothesis is not this, no hypothesis is it's not that. When the null hypothesis gets to 10 to the minus 5, 1 in 100,000, that's a discovery in physics.
Yes, it is.
And we can do the same kind of argument in UFOs. Just call it a particle. If we did it in particle language, even physicists would have to accept it.
Well, it's amazing the physicists who are.
Oh, no, they're coming around.
They are coming around.
And the only reason, let me explain to you, people say, why don't scientists just take this up and run with it and do it? Surely some of them believe it. Yes, they do. But there is a problem.
Yes.
What is the problem? A scientist at a research university or at a corporation needs a research grant or a research contract.
Yeah.
Research grant is given to them by the federal government, who doesn't want the secret out. So no federal government entity will give them a research grant, so they can't fund themselves and their graduate students and their labs, so they're not going to do the work.
Yeah.
Because they're not into doing it for free, because it's publish or perish.
That is true.
I mean,
that is absolutely true.
Understand what you're saying when you're knocking them for not doing it. You're asking them to work for free over something that's going to take years. Now, there's some that do.
What do you think? What do you think the greatest motivation for those that just throw their hands up and say, I've got to do this? I mean, there's such a chance
now. Things are changing.
They are.
There's a billionaire right now who is giving money to a foundation that you can go put in a grant request and get funding for your research. But if you need to publish that work, really high quality, reputable journals discriminate against privately funded research, because it doesn't have the oversight that a government funded research thing would.
Well, but by having the government oversight, you also have the government misinformation possibilities.
The issue is to get your work published. You need it in a reputable journal. They won't accept it in the most cases when it's privately funded.
Sounds like a pretty good setup for non-disclosure to me.
No kidding. So here's my other one. In the 1950s, John Archibald Wheeler, who was one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century that didn't win a Nobel Prize, he should have won 3, was the graduate advisor of both Richard Feynman, who won a Nobel Prize, and Kip Thorne, who also won a Nobel Prize. But from early 1920s until the 1950s, really serious research into gravitation was not done. It just stopped. It died because quantum mechanics and quantum field theory and particles and all this other stuff, especially the Manhattan Project, nothing else was important. But Wheeler said, nobody is doing this fundamental research into gravity. So he talked to 2 industrialists, and they put up money, and they funded a conference at the University of North Carolina and brought all these scientists there. And Wheeler invited his best student ever to give the first paper on gravity. And Feynman wrote down a small gravity version of quantized gravity so they could work with quantum mechanics. And it's great. It won't work at black holes, and it won't work at the beginning of the universe, but all around here, it'll work fine. Okay. And a bunch of others got stuff. And then you had T. Townsend Brown and Lewis Whitten and a bunch of others do all this gravity research and go to this conference. And shortly thereafter, they had interesting results they talked about, and then went dark and never talked again. And all funding for anything that looked like anti-gravity research no longer happened at any funding agency because the government made them stop doing it.
Get out of town.
Oh, yeah. T. Townsend Brown did his work for McDonald Corporation, and Lewis Whitten went to Stony Brook and worked for others up there, Brookhaven National Laboratories, and just they went dark. And after a while, all work related to UFOs was called nuclear and was born secret under the Atomic Energy Act.
Right.
Everybody blames the CIA, but the Atomic Energy Act is where they hid it.
You know, that's one of the things that I have always been curious about, because I know the Atomic Energy Commission fascinates me. One of my favorite things in Vegas is going and learning about that. I love the museum. I love the history. I find the history freaking astounding that people were exposed to this before they knew that this was a bad idea. Okay. The fact that the men being just in ditches and, just duck down and let it go over you. Yeah. That whole thing was like, oh dear God. But,
everybody please go watch the show Downwind. Find it somewhere and watch it.
Downwind. And if you go to Las Vegas, go to the Atomic Energy Museum, because there's a lot of truth that's told there gently. They don't really want it to be,
Downwind is not general, not gentle. It's not gentle at all.
It doesn't need to be. That doesn't need to be. Those people were guinea pigs.
They were lied to by the government. And I'm not talking about just soldiers.
No,
everybody. They told the indigenous people, just hang out here, you'll be all right. Yes. And they wiped out generations of indigenous people.
Yes. Yes. And not only that, but if you went to Vegas on vacation, it was a great treat to be up on top of the buildings watching the explosions.
Yep.
And, if you got to see a mushroom cloud, your day was made. And you'll still find that history in the neon signage in front of the nicer hotels. If you go down on the Fremont Street, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In the neon.
And people don't know how many high-speed neutrons went through their body when they saw that flash.
That's right. Because we were a safe distance away, right?
Right.
So, that is a soapbox that I climb up on sometimes. I'm always surprised to find it under my feet, but I do feel really strongly that, if you ever think that your government is honest with you, go look at some of that information. Because
somewhere in some of my stuff, there might be a piece of sand fused into glass that if I put a Geiger counter would go click, that might have come from the Trinity test site.
Perhaps
illegally brought from the Trinity site.
But I'm absolutely certain that no one would ever find something like that.
No, nothing.
Yes. But, that's one of the things that blows my mind is that, the whole Trinity crash premise is that the reason that the military finally came to look for something was because a UFO took out a comm pole. The wire went down. And yet it still took days for them to come and look for that when they couldn't communicate. So that just kind of gives me a little bit of a maybe not.
But it's got, look, it's kind of cuckoo to think if they're monitoring all our nuclear stuff,
right?
And there's a ton of theories they come from the future.
Yeah.
But to think that they wouldn't be over all of our nuclear tests is like silly.
Yeah. Absolutely silly. And
our first hydrogen bomb, especially the big one
yes.
we did out there, we know we brought down a craft.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think probably nuclear weapons tear a hole into an adjacent dimension.
What do you think about dimensions?
Oh, well, I mean, as a mathematician, it's no big deal for me to think about extra dimensions.
Right.
And the only thing I want is how do I engineer turning me, rotating me into the other dimensions? And let me give you the evidence of an experiencer that would tell you it has to exist.
Please.
Now, this presupposes the experiencer has the experience accurate and they're telling the truth.
Okay.
Okay. But there's a bunch of experiences that say the same thing. A craft comes down. They recall being walked out of their house and through a little portal, going into a craft that's maybe 100 feet across or maybe less. But when you go through that port inside, it's as big as a football field.
Yeah.
That can only be done if the interior of the craft is in extra dimensions. Okay, it's just straightforward. That's what it has to be. So if they are telling the truth, and I believe many of them are, they saw the interior in other dimensions.
Well, that makes you kind of go, because I have seen a craft over my gazebo that it was cloaked in a cloud, but it was like a green cloud, like a tornado green cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just outside in the hammock, hanging out with the dogs and on the phone with my daughter. And I saw that. And like the window ports came out, the front of the craft came out of the cloud. And I was like, and it looked like a pie pen, upside down pie pen. But the portholes were covered. And so I'm on the phone with my daughter and I was like, don't hang up because there's something here and I am not interested in a lost time incident, but don't hang up with me at all. Just keep here. And so, the cloud came over, the front came out. I didn't see anybody to wave at, but I'm like, and it just, the cloud came back over the front of it and it left. And I was just kind of like, holy crap. Because the cloud didn't look big enough for that to be in it. Right. Okay. And it was so low. My gazebo is shorter than my house. Mm-hmm. And it was just at the top of my gazebo. So they were checking it out, Yep. And I thought, dear God, what just happened here?
Lala's number one incident is she was following a craft that was in a cloud, and the cloud was huge, but the craft was huger. Yeah. And so she could see every now and again something in there, and then a helicopter came out from a military base, shined the light on it, and she could see the structure under it. Okay. But she kept following it, and then she had an hour and a half of missing time.
Well, I did not, because Allie stayed on the phone the whole time. And I was talking. Yeah, but it was so bizarre. And I mean, that's the only one I've seen up close in my face. And if I'd have gotten off the phone, would something else have gone differently? Maybe. But I mean, I saw it.
I think that they probably understood you had a witness that they couldn't blank.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lala said it's way over 100 missing time incidents.
Yeah.
Way over 100. So when she was with her boyfriend before he passed away, it was once a week she would go out to do something and not come back for an hour, and he would wonder where she was, and she wouldn't know.
Right.
And so that
When
was
I
like
was
once a
younger, I
week,
had some of those
like
moments.
once a week for 15 years. That's a lot of missing time.
That is a lot of missing time.
And that's roughly the rate.
That's astounding, actually.
Yeah, she has an astounding story, which we are now writing.
Yes. I'll tell you what.
We're not going to get rich, but the story should be told.
Well, the story should be told. And I feel like there's such, the acceptance is so much stronger now that it's okay. If you have an experience, it's okay to share that. Mm-hmm. And people are sometimes considered a novelty, and you're like the flavor of the week or whatever. But I feel like people outside of the experiencers need to know that this really happens.
Yeah.
And, I also appreciate very much Kathleen and Yvonne and the other people that do experiencer groups give those people an opportunity to safely say, this happened. And I don't know what to do with that.
But because we're going to do this, we're doing the writing up, but we need to know something about these incidents. We are looking for a person we can trust with hypnotic regression. Mm-hmm. So we'll find out. But I need to find one I can really work with, because I'm going to do what Bob Luca did with Betty Andreasen, which is Raymond Fowler worked to get her a regressor. Mm-hmm. But then they wanted to move away from Connecticut and go to Florida, and they wouldn't continue unless Bob could do it. So they left a post-hypnotic suggestion with completely locked down parameters. It only worked to remember. You couldn't be told to go rob a bank. All you could be told is to remember.
Right.
Okay, so that kind of lockdown regression is something we need. So we can do it, because let me explain to you. This is 40-something years of nonstop stuff. 40-something years. Her first interacting with a spirit was when she was 3 or 4 years old, and she showed her parents where the grave of their neighbor was in a cemetery that had 10,000 graves.
Wow.
Because the neighbor called her to it. I mean, this is really going to be a really long and complicated book. Very long.
Be worth the effort.
Huge set of different experiences from someone who has basically every contact modality with anything. It's interesting.
She's interesting.
Oh, she's very interesting. But I'm going to tell you what, it is a way. I learned in 2022, and it has taken me 2 years to get over it.
Really?
All this, yeah, it just emotionally.
Sure.
I'm a scientist. Took me 2 years to get over it.
I could see that. I hadn't put it in that context.
Now I'm over it, and I'm ready to help get this story out, because it's one of those that needs to be told how intrusive all this can be, how traumatic it can be at times. And if you are, and you've heard of the telepathy tapes.
Yeah.
She's on the spectrum, and it's not unusual for people on the spectrum to have these abilities.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it being these kids, I'm sorry for them and their parents because of how long they've had to suffer being misunderstood. But they're going to show the world. Lots of it is non-physical. Yeah. The consciousness is about to be totally changed. And we might actually figure out something about it now with these kids' help.
Well, I really hope so, because one of the things that I found growing up is that I was consistently labeled difficult or gifted, difficult, all kinds of other terms that don't sound all that bad, but they don't do you any good. Right? And it was just, it's a big deal. What she's got going on. It's a big deal.
Huge deal.
And to be able to give people the freedom from stigmatizing because of what's happening is going to be one of the best gifts that humanity's been given.
Yeah, let me tell you my favorite story.
Tell me. This will be
in the book. It's my favorite story. We were in our first year together, and we had just moved to Maryland together, and we did not feel like doing a ton of stuff for Thanksgiving, so we went out and had a great one at Bob Evans. It was
I love Bob Evans.
Okay, so we went in there. It was great. So our waitress seemed to be drawn to her, and Lala said, "Let me tell you, there's a relative here that wants to talk to you. If that bothers you, let me know, and we don't need to worry about it. But if you want, I'll help you talk to her." So she helped her talk to the relative, and the girl wound up bawling. It was amazing. And the word spread. And it was almost everybody in the restaurant got a reading. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life to watch all these people understand this is a person they knew for a fact was talking to their relative because she was saying things to them from the other side that no one could possibly know.
Right.
And so they had this validation that their loved one was still alive. And it was the most amazing personal experience.
What a gift. What a gift that those family members were able to give their family members for Thanksgiving.
All by serendipity and just being in the right place at the right time. No money, nothing. This was a gift.
Yes. I mean, when Lala gets something like that, is she compelled? Is it a compulsion?
No, that's how we got together. She was compelled to read my mother for me after my mother died. And I knew before 15 minutes was up that she was the real thing.
Yeah.
And then it was my grandmother and my grandfather and my uncle and on and on. And that's what can I? She says, your grandmother has a poodle in her arms. My grandmother was a poodle breeder, and her favorite dog was sitting in her arms. His name was Pierre. I mean,
was he black or white?
He was white. She raised only white toy poodles. It was amazing. It's just the most amazing experience. So we began investigating, and as we investigated, me asking questions, and when I recognized something, I didn't tell her I recognized it.
Yeah.
I just kept letting her going and going and going. And after about the 10th time of dreaming she had weird entities around her, and she was holding 2 baby boys in her arm and hiding under the table from them and other stuff, I started showing her things that had been written elsewhere. I says, don't take my word for it. Here's an example. And she read it and listened to it and so forth. And it was pretty overwhelming to realize that she was having all this interaction with non-human intelligences, and that she was part of the hybrid breeding program and all this other stuff. It was shocking to her. It took her kind of a little while to get over it.
I would imagine.
Then I had her say, I want you to think about this person and see what they can tell you about reality. And she took off and went away from Earth and learned stuff about the universe and went over to the pyramids and went underneath the pyramids and was accosted by Anunnaki. who told her they were Anunnaki and slapped her around, knocked her down on a bed.
What
this stuff is wild. It's so wild. And I'm just going to do the best I can and tell them what I know and what I believe and what she thinks and what we get. And people will accept it or not. I don't really care.
Well, it kind of has to be done.
Yeah, because this story has to be told.
Yeah. You know, oh my gosh, we're out of time. Dadgummit. But will you come back?
Yeah, of course. You know I will. And I'm sorry I was a little late. I will try not to silence my phone all the time.
It's not a worry, because if there's one thing I can do, and you know this, is talk.
Yeah. The two of us can talk.
Well, I never go political, but I did go opinionated. So relevant to North Carolina and California and what all the people are going through and all the places, and just
every aspect. Governors, federal government, local governments, Democrats and Republicans are together failing our people.
Yes.
To the person.
Yes.
And they fight and don't solve problems.
Well, I have a problem with everybody in North Carolina got $750 from FEMA.
Well, that was the first gift. I mean, the gift.
There's not been much more.
I don't know whether it has or not, but I'm telling you, that's kind of standard operating practice for FEMA, is to give enough people to get by for a little bit till they get more.
Well, there's a line that's 2 days long waiting for propane for heat. So I have an issue. Bad. But anyway, it is terrible.
The government is failing people. We need the governments that don't fail our people.
We need of the people, for the people, by the people. That's what the document says. So we need to get to that. I don't know who's going to step up and do it, but somebody better. But
you got one group over here wants to help folks that are, whatever, and other people over here want to give money to billionaires, and we need somebody to come help everybody else.
Well, we need everything in the pot that everybody pays into, and for that to be dispersed in an even-handed manner.
Well, look, you don't need to take my word for it. You don't need to take my word for it at all. But you can go check that there are a collection of states that give a lot of money to the federal government. They don't get back anywhere near what they put in. But those states in which people hate the government the most get all those other states' money.
Yeah.
You can go check it for yourself.
I'm a political science major. I know all that because I find it interesting to do the research.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But we need people that care about solving people's problems.
And that care about people.
Yeah.
And not just lining their pockets.
My philosophy is our government should be formulated to meet Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. So people can go read about Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs.
And that's everybody's assignment for this week.
There you go. It was great. I'm happy to come back on.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to get you and Lala together. That'll be a
that would be. She's fascinating.
She is fascinating. I'll get that scheduled with y'all. We'll do that soon.
I'll bore people with facts and stuff, and she'll entertain them with the wow.
Well, I like the facts and stuff too, though.
There you go.
So, thank you so much for being here.
It was my pleasure.
And for everyone listening, I know y'all had such a hoot. Thank y'all for being here. And you know what? We will be back Wednesday with Paranormal Experience and next Sunday with another edition of Fate Magazine Radio. Same cat time, same cat channel. And thank you, Bob McGwier. Science Bob.
Thank you,
Good night.
Good night.